All right. Crystal's been tweeting. I've been tweeting in Facebook and in LinkedIn, and we'll see what happens.
Exactly. Well, ladies, it's good to have you here again on this Thursday evening.
Absolutely.
A bit about lean and making improvements to business. So let's do introductions just in case we have new people coming about. So I'll start us off and then we'll just go around the room. So I'm Crystal Davis. My company is the Lean Coach Incorporated, and I enjoy helping my clients to find practical solutions while they help build strong leadership in their company and a culture of problem solvers. So that's me.
And I'm Karen Ross, and my company is Karen Ross Consulting, and I help businesses deliver service excellence by solving problems for their customers using lean philosophy and easy problem solving practices.
There you go. And I am Leslie Hankler, and I am still working for paychecks. I haven't hung out my shingle yet like the other ladies, but someday soon I may. I am a 20-year student of the Toyota production system and an absolute fan of lean thinking and individual problem solving. So very happy to be with you ladies.
Yes, indeed. So I didn't have a particular topic for this evening, but I did read something interesting on LinkedIn yesterday. So I want to get your opinion about this.
Okay.
So in our first Blab, we talked about Gemba walks, and we talked about the Gemba. We talked about Gemba practice and Gemba walks. So this particular comment was in reference to Gemba walks. And the comment was basically stating what a Gemba walk, the practice of Gemba walking was. And there was one piece of the definition, if you will, that I'm not really sure. I think I know what they meant, but I'm not really sure that it came across very clearly, and it might be misconstrued by people who aren't, I'll say, aren't aware and informed. But it started off that a Gemba walk is the practice of management going to, of course, the actual place, but with a detailed plan. And that's the piece of the definition. It says a Gemba walk is a detailed plan where managers go to the actual place where work is happening and kind of trailed off from there. So what do you think about the detailed plan? So I know we talked about Gemba's not being management by walking around, Gemba's not being management by walking about. But I guess, what are your initial thoughts when you hear a detailed plan? And then I'll kind of give my take on what I thought the person might have meant or been alluding to. And then we'll talk a little bit more about expanding on Gemba.
For me, when I think about going on a Gemba walk, and I've never thought about it in terms of a detailed plan, but I suppose you could characterize it as that, right? It's understanding what should be happening and then seeing what is actually happening and recognizing when those are the same or different. So if that's what they're thinking about in terms of a detailed plan, right? Is production meeting the expectation? Are people following their standard work? Then I could subscribe to that as being a detailed plan. But for me, that's always what as a leader, the Gemba walk should be, is that you should be able to tell how the line or the area or the team is performing, whether they're meeting expectations or not. And if they're not, absolutely know enough about the standard work for what each of them is doing to be able to determine where you need to target to try and figure out what's going on.
Okay.
And I guess I was thinking of it maybe also when you talk about a detailed plan, is what I always coach leaders is that when we go to Gemba, we have to go with purpose. Right? So what is the outcome that you want to have for this walk that you're going to take a look at? And, as Leslie said, are you looking for good versus no good? Do you understand the standard work? Why are you actually going to Gemba? What do you want to see? Otherwise, you're going for a walk. you might be a tourist, right? But I'm not sure, if that means the detailed plan of, okay, I'm going to stop here, here, and here. But I think a lot of the problem that we encounter is that when people actually do anything that they think of as lean, that they don't start out with what the purpose is, right? What the goal is. And so then we have nothing, no way to do any kind of PDCA.
Yeah. So I agree with both of you. I was trying to make sense of the statement, and I didn't really read the entire blog, so I'll admit that. And I wasn't really wanting to poke holes in anybody's messaging. But really what I started reflecting on immediately when I thought about that was more like what you were talking about, Karen. What is your purpose? And I started thinking about the elements and objectives of Gemba. And so I struggled with the definition of a detailed plan. And I immediately thought back to an encounter with Mr. Yamada, who was one of my senseis. And we would be walking in the plant, and sometimes it was a matter of seeing an abnormal condition, which does not always follow a plan.
Right.
And so the abnormal condition drives the leader to then ask questions about the abnormality to the norm, and then assess if the systems are working as they should to get things back into a normal condition, or if there's an opportunity to coach and develop people using that experience, an opportunity to teach them how to problem solve, evaluate their thinking for problem solving, and things of that nature. So that for me were some of the reasons why I struggled with a detailed plan, because of course, when people are getting started, they want to understand what they're supposed to be doing, where they're supposed to go, what they're supposed to be looking for. And they don't always have all of the visual management systems in place and 5S in place to help them identify abnormal conditions. So it's kind of like what you were saying, Leslie, are we looking for good, bad, or are we looking for just opportunities to be better? And in line with what you said, Karen, about purpose. So I struggled a little bit with the detailed plan, because when you're out evaluating what's supposed to be happening, whether it's in operations or a service organization, you're really looking for abnormal conditions, and you're looking for the opportunities to teach and coach and mentor and problem solve. And sometimes it's not even a problem, it's just an opportunity to improve.
Right.
So, Crystal, did it kind of make you feel, maybe when you read that it was more of a check the box versus actually go to see? So maybe you'd have like this checklist that you were going to look at these, 5 things or 6 things, that here was your detailed plan. And then the Gemba walk, or the activity, became much more about checking off the boxes on this plan versus actually going to see, to understand and to ask questions and to develop people. Yes. Versus, okay, now I did my Gemba walk. I checked off all of these things.
That's exactly what I felt. And I was like, why am I so uncomfortable with the way that they've described this? And I know that, depending on the blogger and the audience that they're reaching, they might be talking to people who are so green that they need a plan just to get them out of their offices and actually onto Gemba. So I know that there are different reasons why, that could have been, but I really started reflecting. I was like, that's really an opportunity, a teaching opportunity. Right. And the other thing I'll add is that I saw a tweet from Mark Robin, and he was talking about, someone had posted that Toyota Kata is a problem-solving approach. And he reported and said, Toyota Kata is a teaching tool. Right.
I totally.
Toyota,
I totally agree.
yes, Toyota Kata is, and Mike Ruther himself will say Toyota Kata is a people development,
That's right.
approach, and it's not.
Exactly.
It's misinterpreted as a problem solving
Yes.
approach. And it's very interesting because I've been to a variety of places that actually now will say, okay, let's go and do a kata, right? That took on sort of a language,
right? Like, what is
of
that?
its own, right? That we're going to go and again, it's like, are we checking the box, right? Are we going with this detailed plan, or are we actually developing people to, to think and to do, and to, developing people through making things, whether it's a product or whether it's a service.
Yes.
Right. But, all of these things tend to take on a life of their own. Are you going to Gemba to actually improve, look for things that are going to improve your business, whether it's manufacturing or service? Are you going to Gemba, okay, I went to Gemba. I did it. I did my leader standard work.
Right. Yeah. I'm like, okay, well, great. So what?
We've been talking a lot about the kata at work, and we've been teaching some of the managers about the thinking of kata. We always talk about them in terms of, did you ever leave work and then end up in your driveway and not know how you got there? That's the kata we're trying to teach. We're trying to teach people to do their work in such an unconscious, conscious way that they execute it flawlessly, but without thinking about it. Yeah. And that's what we're trying to do, right? So we're trying to teach. So we're trying to teach people to problem solve. And to me, it's just a fascinating dichotomy between having to go through a rigorous process.
Yes.
And the goal of unconscious consciousness of doing the right things and asking the right questions.
Oh, that's powerful.
Right. And I think the interesting thing about kata too is that it really ties into our discussion about purpose, right? Because kata always starts out with, well, what's your challenge?
Yep.
Right? Where are you going? Because if you don't actually have that challenge, then you don't have anything to improve towards. What are you developing your people towards? What do your customers want, right? Where are we not meeting their expectations? Where do we need to improve our, product or our service or our quality?
Right.
Right. And a lot of times I think people do run into problems in the fact that there's no end goal. So if there's no end goal, how do we know that whatever change we've made is actually an improvement, right? Yeah. It may simply just be a change. And I often hear, well, I like to do something this way. And then someone says, well, personally, I like to do something this other way. Well, we're all people. We all like to do things, differently. That's the nature of being human.
Right? Like if we didn't think we were right, we would do it differently.
Absolutely.
No, I like to say we all have noses. So we all have opinions. We all have noses. I mean,
I like that.
That's it. But if there's no purpose and there's no goal you're striving for, and that everybody really understands what that is, and then you can measure something and say, oh, well, actually, this gets us closer to the goal. Oh, this way actually does not get us closer to the goal. Then, it's much easier for people to understand, well, yes, if it gets us this much closer, then people tend to actually want to do it that way. It's not personal preference anymore.
Right.
Right.
It's purposeful preference.
Purpose. Yes. I think you've coined a new term, Leslie, purposeful preference.
So, it's funny that you say that because I just wrote down purpose and I was going to ask the question, of both of you, have you had experiences where it was so clear that the organization, department, or group that you were working with had no understanding of the purpose of why you were on the lean journey? And how did you handle that?
Yes.
Let's go with a big resounding yes. Let me think through my litany of opportunities.
Sorry, I didn't mean to throw you guys like that. But I mean, it's so true. It's like that's how we end up with these, oh, and I gotta have a roadmap. I gotta know where we're going. I gotta know what we're doing. They want these regimented routines instead of thinking and learning by doing and
having a goal, right? Shooting for something that matters.
I think that the underlying problem that goes with your question, Crystal, is that when you ask many organizations about what their actual purpose is as an organization, I think it's often very hard for them to tell you what that is, and whatever they originally started out doing, it's probably now become so internally focused that, if we've lost track of why we're here to serve our customers, or what is it that our customers need, or what problems are our customers coming to us to solve, because whether you buy a product or whether you buy a service, the reason you're doing it is to solve some kind of problem that you're having. And I think a lot of organizations have lost track of their own mission, purpose, right? And so if they don't have a strong understanding of what their organization's purpose is in the world, right? What are we trying to do for our customers? Where are we in the world? What purpose do we serve? What is our long-term philosophy? Then the problem really becomes, lean is just, something extra. Again, it's a check the box thing. Well, what are we doing? What are we developing people for, right? What are we improving for? So I think those two things are really connected in my experience.
One of the things that you were just speaking, Karen, right? It reminds me of one of my key philosophies is we want the lean not to be something else that we do, but how we do what we do. And so helping people to make that connection between problem solving and the looking for waste and the opportunity to drive performance is how we do the work we do. Versus it's one more thing on the top is really a big opportunity for communicating to executives and to managers so that they can help their teams to perform better and better.
Right. One of the challenges that I find, just, what you're saying, Leslie, is that people will say, well, all of this lean stuff is taking us extra time, right? Okay, we're huddling or doing, Gemba walks. We're doing a variety of different things. We're taking time to make A3s. We're doing problem solving. But what they aren't actually doing is connecting that to the reason that we're doing this is to improve customer satisfaction and business performance, right? So all of these activities seem disconnected, right? And so again, and it goes back to kata and it goes back to purpose. If you don't have that goal, right, that end goal in mind, which you can't have if you don't understand what your purpose is, right? Then it's just something extra to do. And maybe you're going to go with a detailed plan now for your Gemba walk. Now, on the other hand, of course, maybe if you're a leader and you have a deep understanding, really you've spent a lot of time thinking about what the end goal and purpose that you want is for your Gemba walk, and you've actually made a plan that's very specific to the particular walk. We don't know. Yeah. And that could work too, right?
Yeah, it could. Right. It could. Yeah. It could. I was thinking as you were talking about how so many organizations confuse lean with cost cutting and only focus on, savings. And again, in those environments, they're internally focused. And in some regards, it's very important to have strong business practices and, drive strong efficiencies and productivity. But at the same time, those organizations have lost sight of why they're in business, what problem they solve for their customer base, and therefore have lost sight of purpose.
Right. And it's if we don't actually understand what it is that our customer wants, right, we can speed up a process as much as we want, right? and deliver early, but we may then simply be overproducing. And
Exactly.
as we all know from our experience, customers want what they want when they want it. So although we might like to think, oh, it's great for someone to get their delivery half an hour early, the customer might not be home. The package might be left on their doorstep, and when they arrive home, they might be actually angry.
Yes.
Because they wanted the package delivered at 10 o'clock.
Yep.
Because they were going to be in, right?
Especially during this season where, people are stealing packages because they think it's gifts for Christmas.
Absolutely. So if we don't know what it is our customers want and, have that as our goal to improve towards, we don't know it. Still, again, are we making an improvement, or are we just spinning our wheels and speeding up for no reason?
There you go.
That's true. So let's go back to kata for a minute and let's talk about that. Let's talk about the practice of kata and how have we, what are your opinions, I'll say, around how we've arrived at yet more confusion? It seems like every time we come out with deeper learning or new stuff, people just want to jump on the bandwagon without fully getting a in-depth understanding and knowledge. So how is it that this seems to be a reoccurring theme in the lean space, and what are some ideas or practices that you guys have put in place to make sure that that's not happening within your organizations?
Well, I'll give you a quick story. Back with my other company, we worked with Shinjitsu, and one of my favorite coach senseis was Harasan. And we started talking to Harasan one day about PDCA. And we said, so Harasan, how long did it take you to understand PDCA? Karen's heard this story.
I love this story. It's my
10
favorite.
years for P, right? I've been doing this for 20 years. I almost have PD.
Okay, exactly.
So that's the depth of understanding and the intensity with which they studied and learned, right? Yes. We are, however, in the instant gratification culture. Mm-hmm. So the whole thing around PDCA sounds simple, and I can explain it to you in 30 seconds, and it takes 10 years to understand, plan.
Yep.
There's a gap, I think, in that, in just how people think, right? Everything is instant. And what I think you see is people talk about kata, and they're like, oh, we got to do that. We got to do this. We got to do that. We have them 5S. We didn't, right? It's about tools, and it's not about thinking. And that it makes me a little bit crazy, but I really do think it's a combination of people not actually grasping the depth at which these tools are, what they really mean, right? They seem so simplistic on the surface, like it's a 30-second conversation. You talk to somebody who really gets it. It's a 10-year learning journey, and people don't want to put that in anymore. So for me, that's a piece of what we're seeing with the kata, right? Because anybody who's studied martial arts, where kata came from, knows it's years and years and years of study, along with sometimes a gift for actually grasping what it is that you're doing, right? And now people think, oh, I just have to do this. And it's an instant fix, instant gratification thing. And so I think for me, that's a big piece of it, is people think everything happens in a moment, and it just doesn't.
No.
I think that also there was a misunderstanding, actually, of the fact that kata is something different, right? Mm-hmm. Rather than it's actually part of exactly the same way of thinking about lean as we previously had.
Right.
So I went to actually the kata conference last year, and there were a whole variety of different people who were talking about, okay, now we're not going to do value stream mapping anymore. We're not going to actually, we don't need to do an A3 anymore. And it's like, okay, we don't need to throw out the baby with the bathwater, right? Mike is giving us, I believe, a very detailed understanding of a part of how to use problem solving to develop people that people really didn't understand, right? Almost every organization that I go to that uses an A3, there's a very difficult for people to understand, okay, I'm not just filling in all the boxes, I'm actually working with a coach on this problem, right? And how are we going to improve? And so Mike has a great system where actually you're practicing every day those behaviors, right? Yeah. With your coach on real improvements in the business. But I think that there was a misunderstanding of that. And then again, maybe because we like things to be new and improved, maybe we feel we're failing with some of our other approaches, right? Okay, well, we can, throw everything else out and we can adopt this. And I don't believe that that's what Mike ever actually intended. No.
I agree.
So was there conversation at the conference about, not abandoning those tools? Or there was? Okay.
Yes. And the thing is, there was a lot of conversation about the fact also is that tools, we can't have the practice without the tools and the tools without the practice and the philosophy and the understanding. Leslie, we get that 10 years for plan, right? From actually using these tools over and over, and they become ingrained. Yep. And they become ingrained in us.
Right.
So that we really, this is a part and an understanding and a way to deepen our practice. But there was a conversation also about what is the practice and what is the purpose and what is the philosophy versus just, again, if all we're using is tools, if all we're using these things is as tools, we are not going to get
we won't get the result. We're missing the mark, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So I guess the other question I have is going back to kind of your experience, Leslie, with your sensei. Mr. Yamada would always say, I learn every day. And he would never allow anyone to call him an expert or a guru. And so I've noticed that with the adverb or the kata philosophy becoming more popular, and I don't know if this is something that Mike is offering or something that other people are just doing, but I've seen master kata coaches.
Yeah, like expert. It makes me roll my eyes.
Almost like a master plan.
Right. I think that's consultants. Yeah. No, I think that's consultants who've taken something but as far as I know, Mike is not certified.
Right. For me, there's a level of humility, and Karen and I have talked about this. There's a level of humility that comes with knowing what you know and recognizing what you don't know. And I've been doing this a very long time now, and I know less than I ever thought I did.
Yes.
Right. I never thought I knew. It's like the more I do, the more I realize how much I still don't know and still have to learn.
I was teaching a class the other day. We're doing some basic problem solving coaching classes with teams. And as I was talking to them, they're like, you've been doing this forever. Like, why are you doing this? I said, because some one of you will ask me a question that nobody's ever asked before. And when they do, you're going to make me think. And when you make me think, you're going to make me better than I was when I walked in the room. So that's why I want to spend 4 hours with you. Because I will be better when I leave than I was when I came in. And I hope that you all will be too. And to me, that's who we are and what we do. And I don't believe there's a lot of people that actually purport that to be the philosophy.
Yeah, I don't.
I would agree.
I don't
Go
either.
ahead,
Well,
Karen.
it was very interesting because I was working with someone a couple of weeks ago, and they had come and they'd asked if I would teach them. And, you know, they came very sincerely, and I said, sure. And so we had our, you know, first meeting, and we were just getting to know each other a little bit. And the person was, you know, quite a high level leader. And finally, in the end, the assignment became for this person, you know, what are you going to do as your first learning? And that was to, in the next week, find 3 things that they didn't know before and that they learned. And to focus on, instead of, you know, you're the leader and you think you know everything, find 3 things and bring back 3 things to me next week that you've actually learned. And the person was silent for a couple of moments, and they said to me, I think this is going to be much harder than it seems at first assignment. And I said, yes. And I said, I think the challenge, you know, and the joy for me in doing this is that every day I have the opportunity to learn something new, right? Every single day there is something new. I find out what I do not know every single day.
Absolutely. And so that brings me to my final question and point. So a lot of what we've been talking about tonight all circles back to this one thing. So we've been talking about purpose. We've been talking about depth of learning. We've been talking about tools with practice and the practice with tools. And then we've been talking about how even we are still learning when we engage and utilize these tools more often. So when it all boils down to it, for me, it comes back to learning by doing. One of the premises of, or key principles of, that I've learned of Lean is learning by doing. We can teach these things and tell people all we want. That's part also of the coaching relationship. So one of the things that I've been thinking about, and I actually thought about writing a blog about it, is, you know, how to really emphasize and stress the intangible gains that you can receive by practicing this basic principle of learning by doing. We always want people, you know, I used to be in organizations and they'll say, well, how many people went through the training course, or how many people got their certification at this level? And I'm like, who cares if they're not doing anything with it? Right? How effective, how can we begin to measure the intangible benefits of learning by doing, the development of people, their ability to make improvements in their daily jobs, as well as in those major projects that we might be focused on? So I guess I just want to hear your final thoughts on that before we close out this evening, just on how can we put more emphasis on the practice, learning by doing.
I think that oftentimes really we think, okay, first we have to teach people, we have to give them the theory, we have to somehow get their buy-in, right? We're going to send them to training, we're going to get their buy-in, and then we're going to convince them that they, you know, will go and execute. And actually, I was talking to someone this week who was, you know, explaining something to me and saying, well, these people aren't quite there yet, right? They're not ready to do this yet. I said, I'm going to tell you, I believe that this is absolutely the opposite. They don't, at this moment, what they need to do is do this, right? And by doing and changing their habits, which is what kata is all about, right? Changing your neural pathways by doing,
right?
Then they will get it because they will see the result. You cannot argue them into anything. So you're the coach. I was coaching a coach. You're the coach. And what I'm going to ask you to do is push these people and make them uncomfortable and have them do it. And they may be kicking and screaming, but a week later, guess what? They'll be used to it.
Me, babies kick and scream all the time,
exactly
right?
It.
Right. And you still go on and do what
and
you
that's
have
really,
to do.
You know, what developing people is. People are going to be uncomfortable in learning new things when you push them past that knowledge threshold that Mike talks about, right? They're going to be uncomfortable, and uncomfortable, you're going to get 2 things. You're going to get fight or you're going to get flight, right? You're going to chase them down,
Exactly.
or they're going to argue with you. But when I see people who are in that stage, I'm like, great, you're ready to learn. Let's go. Now it's time to do with your coach by your side, right? Then you'll be confident. Then 10 years later, Leslie, you might learn P, right? From PGCA.
Might be.
Yeah, might be.
I love that.
There you go. So I was as Karen was talking, I was reflecting. I was coaching a young lady and her manager this week. She wants to take a 16-week training course. And so if they're going to take the training course, then one of our requirements is that they have a business problem they're going to solve. So they identify the business problem, their manager and their director and their vice president all have to sign off on it. And then they can take the class. And then as they go through the class, at each step, as they learn a tool or a method or a skill, they have to apply it to the problem they're trying to solve. And what they're going to learn is that was the right tool or the wrong tool to apply to that, but they're going to try everything they learn against the problem they're trying to solve. And the manager was just like, I don't have time for this. Can't you just take the class and then do a project? I'm like, no. They're learning by doing. If you want her to put in place the answer that you believe is true, then tell her to go and do it. I'm not putting her through class. If what you want is for her to take a problem that has no solution and to learn skills and practice, and through the discovery process, come up with the right thing to do or things to try to see if they work, then this is a good fit. But I'm not taking this person, I don't care how high potential they are, and putting them in 16 weeks of training so we can stamp their ticket. Yep, they did this, they did this. I'm not going to do it. And so it was really a difficult conversation. But as we're talking about all of this, to me, that's like the heart of it. That's the difference between people who get it and don't get it. Because when you get it, you understand that the learning comes through the doing. And when you don't get it, you believe as long as we get to the answer, it doesn't actually matter how you got there. And that's the conundrum that I think we're in sometimes as we try and transition our senior leaders from where they are to where we want them to be.
Absolutely. I always tell people, so would you take up a new language and not, you just listen to the tape, not speak any of it until you finish?
Oh, I love that. I'm using that. It's so
Absolutely not. And then, you know, going to your point about even people thinking that we have to teach them first. So with one of my clients, I said, you know, we were talking about the supermarket concept, and they had been working with a very good coach before me who retired. And I said, you know, I'm really, really surprised that you guys haven't already implemented a supermarket under this previous person. And they said, oh, he was really pushing us to do it, but we were so afraid and we just didn't think we were ready. So they wanted me to do some training on supermarket and have all this training. I said, well, here's your training.
Put it in supermarket.
I said, tell me what kind of cereals. And the guy goes, Honey Nut Cheerios. I said, okay, great. So you like the small box or the big box? Oh, I like to get the big box. Great. So when you go to the supermarket, I forget which chain or it was, I said, you'd like for the large box of Honey Nut Cheerios to be, right? You just buy one box? Yeah, just buy one box. Awesome. I said, so you notice that the entire row is not large boxes of Honey Nut Cheerios, right? Just a small section. Yeah. So, well, think about it. So the supermarket monitors the behavior of its customers, determines the expected demand, and makes sure that the large box of Honey Nut Cheerios is on the shelf, right? So that when you, customer, come to pick it up, there's one for you to take. You take it, they replace it. That's your training. Now let's go to the supermarket.
That's
I love that.
That's it. Just
listen, ladies, they have been working, the previous guy had been working with them for 18 months. They implemented that supermarket in the next
all on the Honey Nut Cheerios.
Yes,
Training
and then you're
materials.
simply going to
Large
learn from doing, right? Because you are going to
That's right.
see the result of
Yes.
what happened.
Well, and there's a connection for people. Crystal, I applaud you for that example. There's a connection for people in things that they do. Right? I mean,
Exactly.
one of my folks spends all of her time talking to people about, like, in line at the bank, right? You no longer line up behind each teller. You line up in a long line, and everybody goes to the next place, right? So isn't that how we want our clients' work to come in and get set up? We don't want them just to sit in Crystal's lane, right? Crystal might have a really difficult client. We want them to be getting to the next available teller. And she'll talk about the bank, and everybody's like, the light bulbs go off, right?
Yeah, because it's simple.
Anything
and
you can take to how we do what we do every day, I think rocks it.
Yeah. And to what you said, Karen, that's exactly what's happening. They're learning. But on this part, we realized that we wiped them out in a day. But then they didn't need any more for another 2 weeks. So we were almost going to increase the inventory. Then we realized we didn't need to. I'm like, yes, this is learning by doing.
And that's, I think the sad thing is people are so paralyzed by fear to do something, right? Because, you know, what if it doesn't work? And I'm always like, well, if it doesn't work, you'll do something else. Right?
I tell them, if it doesn't work, you're fighting fires today. Just fight that one.
That's exactly right. Put it together with paper and, you know, duct tape and try it out. And if it works, stick up a flip chart paper, write the things down that you want. If it turns out to be what you want to measure and works well for you as, you know, some kind of visual management or visual control, then make it more permanent. If not, scrunch up the flip chart and, you know, start again. It's okay.
And work it out. Exactly. So, well, ladies, this has been fun. I'm so glad to be back.
Yay, Crystal.
I still can't really do a whole lot, but you know, I feel better and I feel like more like myself again. So
and we're glad to see you, and your voice has lots of energy and you look fabulous.
Yes. So, well, it's been great, and we will sign off on this Thursday evening. I will send you the recording, so be sure to share the recording on your social media sites. And I also this week on LinkedIn, I started sharing the post in my group as well.
Excellent.
So hopefully that'll lead to some more people. And then maybe we can consider actually inviting guests.
I love that. So Mark was supposed to be with us tonight. I don't think he made it, but I know he's got a Blab tomorrow night. So I want to try and jump over and support him on what he's got going tomorrow. But I've been finding some really neat stuff. A gentleman I used to work with just posted some YouTube things with the Cleveland Clinic. And so they've done around patients and focusing on patients that come into their labs and getting seen within 15 minutes of walking into a walk-in lab across the whole city of Cleveland. Wow. So there's some really neat stuff going on. I want to start to try and pull some of those folks in for us as well, and then share some of the neat stuff they're doing, because there's amazing things going out there, and the more we can give props to all that different stuff, I think the more energy we're going to pull in.
Oh, that'd be great. Can you email those links? I'd love to read those studies.
All right. Take care, Crystal. Good to be back. Bye, Karen.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All righty.